Having separation with the device is key, and just setting really good boundaries. And that's one thing we work with a lot of folks on is, what are those boundaries that are specific to you and your family or your relationships that work? Everyone's a little bit different, but create those boundaries, stick to them, and have those great interactions.
Welcome to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg.
We're live from Laguna Beach at the Ben Reinberg I Own It studios today, and we just keep bringing on incredible guests. I'm so grateful because we get to have another in-studio guest, Forest Bronzan. Thank you so much for joining us today. What a pleasure to have you come here from Oregon, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So I want to kick things off by discussing your company, Digital Detox, DD. I believe most adults are at least vaguely aware of their tech addiction, which to me is fascinating. But you have some pretty incredible statistics about the extent of the issues of tech products having our well-being. So let's speak about the extent of the problem and the mission of DD, Digital Detox.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Ben. So, at a 50,000 foot view, just to clarify, DD, we're not anti-tech, right? And we're not promoting throw away your phone and move to the woods. That said, vast majority, probably 90% of people will report that they're not happy with the relationship they have with their phone, with their social media. And so we want to promote taking small steps to finding just a little bit more balance. And that could extrapolate into a lot of time saved over the course of a lifetime. So yeah, what we're seeing is just crazy. It's across all age groups across the globe. We have subscribers in over 90 countries now, I think. And starting from age 0 to death, you're going to be impacted by technology. If we break that down, some of the groups that we look at, parenting, I think it's the parenting challenge of our generation. My kids are 8 and 6. They're not quite into that middle school, high school age yet, but it starts very early. And one thing parents don't think about is how they model behavior for kids at a very young age. And we could talk about that more. But then once you get into middle school, high school, the data we're seeing is just absolutely heartbreaking. The increase in self-harm rates, suicide rates. Best case scenario, a lot of schools that we talk to, they're having decreases in empathy and social interaction and not setting up for kind of real world communication skills. But the worst case is we're actually seeing meaningful increase in self-harm, which is really sad. And then with adults, it's the average adult spending at least 5 hours a day on social media or phones. Teens, it's 9 to 10 hours a day. And we're just losing our ability to connect in a meaningful way one-on-one, impacting productivity, impacting personal health via sleep, via exercise. So there's a lot of problems going on. A lot of people talking about it, and we're trying to do something about it to help people get a little bit better.
Oh, that's great. So what are the key remedies you recommend for people who are addicted to their consumer devices and want to be more intentional about phone usage? Because I imagine some options are easier to implement and require major life changes.
Yeah, so that's going to be very individual specific, right? And it's a very different conversation if we're talking about a teen versus a 20-something versus a parent. Technology is a part of our lives. It's a stressful time right now, people working hard. A lot of that, we're in just this very connected space. And so you can't completely get away from it. But there's some fundamental things. How we like to think about it is presence, right? And so we could talk about the mechanics of best practices, turning off notifications, not having the phones in the bedroom. There's a whole laundry list of kind of 101 presence items. But at the end of the day, we encourage folks to be very deliberate about how they're spending time. So with your kids, for example, not great if you're spending time with your young son and you're also on your device. Not only is that modeling bad behavior, but it's taking away from your experience with your son, right? And so when you're at dinner, when you're out on a date, 50% of people on a first date from a dating app report their companion being on their phone, not for checking schedule, but swiping, going through Instagram, etc. That's not good on first date interactions and what should be this fun romantic experience, and we're losing connection. So, one thing we ask people to do is, at the end of the day, just close your eyes for a few minutes and ask yourself, was I happy with my interactions today, with my interactions with people around me and with my relationship with my phone and tech? And if the answer is yes, great. Okay. You might have a good model going on, but probably 80% of the time when we ask that question, it's like, no, I think I can do better. I could have a little bit better balance with my time and a little bit better relationship with my tech.
That's a great answer. It's so interesting because I see so many people leave their phone on the table when they're at restaurants. and then they look at it. And it's like, how do you have that being present with the person you're with? Whether it's family, you're on a date, significant others. And I see that one of the things also that I say is not picking up the phone and calling, connecting, not going and having a meeting or going out to have a drink with someone or a coffee or whatever, to have that social interaction. It was one of the things I saw when COVID was going on, is that we need to have social interaction with each other. And I think these devices we have, what I love about what you do, it really prohibits, or it basically prevents kids and adults from connecting and being aware of saying, wait a minute, I need to be present. I'm so worried about what's going on here, but I'm not paying attention to you.
It's a huge bottleneck, and the table example is a good one. One, no phones at the dinner table, but two, a lot of people make a mistake at a lunch. They'll have their phone physically on the table and they won't check it, but just having that there increases anxiety because you're waiting for notification, or the person you're with is worried that you might be waiting for notification. So nowhere even near the table. Having separation with the device is key, and just setting really good boundaries. And that's one thing we work with a lot of folks on is, what are those boundaries that are specific to you and your family or your relationships that work. Everyone's a little bit different, but create those boundaries, stick to them, and have those great interactions.
So on a personal level, I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to start DD? And have you had issues with tech addiction or other addictions personally? And how much technology do you use today now that you're in this space?
Good question. I mean, happy to go over the history of the company. It's probably a 60-second answer.
Sure.
The company was started by my dear friend Levi Felix in 2012, and we went to middle school together, best friends then. And he had a life-changing experience. He passed out at work and went to the hospital. They found he'd been bleeding internally for 3 days from overwork. He was working 90-hour weeks. Mm-hmm. And so he said, screw this. This was circa 2009, 2010. Moved to Cambodia for a couple years, spearfished for villages, just did the 100% DD, digital detox experience. Came back to the States and said, look, I need to bring this back to America. And this was 2012. This was before a lot of the things we're seeing right now, before TikTok was even around, before Instagram was what it is now. Fast forward to 2017, the company started as retreats. So retreats for adults, summer camps for adults. Levi was speaking around the world, writing a book, and he goes deaf in a meeting with his literary agent, and he gets rushed to the hospital. He has a brain tumor, dies 6 months later at 32 in 2017. And so the company went on a brief hiatus. And at that time, I had a different company. And I took it over in 2020, right before COVID. And we had global events scheduled, and then COVID shut us down again, and we paused. So we focused the last several years a lot on research and getting ready for the next launches that we have coming up. So that's the long history of the company. In terms of what motivates me on it, and then my own technology use, and have I been addicted to tech? Sure. At my previous company, I ran at one of the leading digital agencies, and I spent a lot of time on technology. I spent a lot of time when I was with meaningful people on the phone, and that hit me hard, realizing, wow, I'm missing out on some of these key life experiences. This isn't good. And then once we started seeing some of the data come around the world about how it's impacting teens and impacting relationships and marriages, and no one's doing anything about it, that's not right. We need to do this. And it's a global problem, Ben, everywhere in the world. Again, we're just one company. We have customers in 80 different countries everywhere I go. And one thing I'm doing right now is traveling the world to understand how different cultures and different kind of sub-communities are dealing with the situation. It's the same everywhere, pretty much. It's a big issue. So yeah, I'm wildly passionate about it. We want to bring some folks some more time, more presence, set up this next generation of our youth to be more successful, and we're having a blast.
Oh, that's great. So in my view, the role of Silicon Valley in tech addiction is not out in the open as it should be. But these apps and phones are deliberately designed, as we know, to capture our attention and to have us crave that next dopamine hit, sure, which is always the issue. What are your thoughts on the role of Silicon Valley in the problem, and perhaps what's the solution?
Ooh, that's a big one, right? So maybe let's talk about two of the social media in particular might be helpful, right, for the listeners to understand I mean, there's a lot that goes into play with social media addiction. Two things that we talk about a lot, we could break it down into two pillars, psychological and two mechanical inventions. So on the psychological side, I mean, humans have this innate desire for social acceptance, right? And social media is just that perfect, imperfect mechanism to do that. And so you're constantly checking a post, how many likes did I get? You're constantly checking how many followers I have. Put that into the hands of a teenager where they don't have the capacity yet to contextualize a lot of that. And most teenagers will delete a post within an hour if it doesn't have a socially acceptable number of likes, because the two fundamental reasons we do anything, pleasure-seeking, pain avoidance, they're avoiding the pain of not being socially accepted. So on the psychological side, it's massive. It's similar to a slot machine where you're kind of endlessly looking for that dopamine release.
Yeah.
That gets into the two technical innovations. So one was endless scroll, and this was invented in 2007-ish, I think. So I don't know if you remember before that, way back in the day, 2006, pagination, where you had to click to the next page, right? I'm on page 4, click to page 5.
Right.
Endless scroll, there's effectively never an end to what you're looking at. So think about going to a casino and a slot machine. Before, current slot machines, you'd have quarters. Go with 100 quarters, and you could physically know, okay, I have 30 quarters left, I'm going to leave. Now with slot machines, it's all digital. You run it down. Similar with social and that endless scroll. So endless scroll changed a lot because it's just this endless dopamine wheel. Second major innovation was the like button. Facebook brought it popular. They didn't invent it, but they brought it popular in 2009, and that changed everything too. So now you have that combined with the need for social approval, social acceptance, and game over. So where does Silicon Valley and big tech kind of fit into that? I think that was more of your question.
Yep.
It's complicated. They're certainly engineering and gamifying applications to be more addictive. And I feel they have a responsibility to do things in a way that is conducive to better mental health. I think they definitely need to step it up. But that's why there's groups like Digital Detox and a lot of other great ones around the world that, again, like we're not anti-tech. I'm not here slamming Facebook and Meta. That's not it at all. That's not going anywhere. And I think we need to accept that, the world we live in, there's always going to be a new app. There's going to be a new tech. There's going to be new social media. How do you balance that in your life and have boundaries to make sure that you're living happy and healthy?
So you're a highly successful marketer. And having sold your Silicon Valley-based marketing agency to Tenuity a few years ago, I'm curious how you view marketing's role in tech addiction.
Marketing's role in tech addiction. That's interesting. So when we think at Digital Detox about tech addiction, it's less on the marketing side. It's more on, I listened to your podcast recently with Brendan Kane, and I'm a huge fan of Brendan's.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
He's great, one of the top minds in the space, and we agree on a lot of things when we're putting on our marketing hat. It's interesting with Digital Detox. It's sort of a little bit of a juxtaposition because we're trying to put more stimulus. He's trying to put more stimulus. This isn't a Brendan Kane podcast, but marketers trying to put more stimulus into the ecosystem, and we're trying to tell you have a little bit of balance. I think the thing that a lot of people get wrong about marketing and martech, though, is that it's all bad. At the end of the day, though, I would much rather see an ad that's very personalized for me than something completely irrelevant. And so sometimes the data is good, and it's good for marketers to have that data to be able to serve relevant ads. Like, unless there's a hypothetical world that'll never happen where there's zero advertising, it's not going to happen. What would you rather have? Ads that are much more targeted to something that you're actually going to like, or something completely irrelevant? So there's a place for both. What we want folks to do is just really understand what that relationship looks like for them, and not let their tech own them.
But also the knowledge and content you could provide from an ad to add value to someone is also important too. So there is some benefits to it as well.
100%. That was my point. Again, like serving the relevant ad, but
right.
A lot of times that relevant ad is adding tremendous value, and it's leading you to something that's going to change your life in a positive way.
So your former company, Email Aptitude, was rated by several rankings as a top place for employees to work for. So congrats for that. That's really an incredible accomplishment. Share a bit about your leadership philosophy that translated into the happy workplace.
Yeah, and that's something I'm really proud of. When I started the company, we happened to be good at loyalty and CRM, but I really wanted to create a community and a best place to work, not for the awards, but we spend so much time with our work friends and our work colleagues. It has to be an awesome environment, and we achieve that. Yeah, at the end of the day, with email aptitude, we were just a very transparent group. We were very humble. We didn't take ourselves too seriously. We owned our mistakes, and we learned along the way. And I think one of the key things in building that ecosystem and that community was hiring the right folks that bought into that vision and kind of bought into that, and we're part of that ethos of, look, like we don't have all the answers. We don't know everything. We're not going to do everything perfectly, but we're human and we're going to do our best, and we're going to support each other, and we're going to support our clients and try to have some fun along the way. So really being extremely selective on who we bring in. That's one of the biggest mistakes, especially early companies make, is having a bad hire in the first 10, 15 hires, because it might be someone on paper that's great at this technical skill, but it's not really a great fit in terms of the company and culture. And one or two bad seeds in that first 10 to 20 employees that could completely derail a company long term. So we were extremely diligent about that, especially in the first 20 and then all the way up to 100 before exit, making sure every hire came on was going to kind of fit our ethos and in terms of how we approach the world and think about the company.
It's incredible. I deal with that all the time. I'm always looking at, if there's toxicity in the company, we have to get rid of it. It will start bleeding into other departments, and it's something I'm very aware of. And it's such a great point for everyone out there. Be aware of who your leadership team is, who your employees are. Be conscientious. Is everyone focused and guided and going towards the mission and have a clear mission for the company, which I think is so important. Obviously, with the success you had with this happy workplace, you had a clear mission, people bought into it, and everyone's pulling the wagon in the same direction.
Yeah, and I think another thing is what we looked for and that we encouraged is knowing that that mission might change, like what we thought we were doing or wanted to do on day one. 3 years, so much can change in the world. So being nimble and being able to calibrate and, again, like having fun along the way and laughing at ourselves when we mess up.
That's great. So I believe you're currently an investor or advisor in several other startups and established brands. What have you been focusing on lately, and do you bring Digital Detox consumer perspective to your advice to companies in terms of how they invest in marketing?
Yeah. So I invest a lot passively, and then if I find a founder that I really like or a brand that I could get behind, then I'm a little bit more active. And with Digital Detox, most of my time's on Digital Detox right now. That's a huge problem that we need to solve, and something globally that we need to have some meaningful improvements on. So if I'm breaking down my timescape, most of it's spent on Digital Detox. But yeah, like with the founders that I work with and the investors that I'm talking to and companies that I'm investing in, where DD kind of comes in is helping them have a healthier workspace in some ways. The happier and healthier and more balanced employees can be with their technology, the more productive they're going to be. And that might sound counterintuitive. As an employer, you want your employee on their device all the time. No, you want that balance, because then they're going to be that much more productive when they are on. And then in terms of, MarTech, my background and with loyalty and CRM, a lot of that comes into play with the brands I'm talking to. How can we create a meaningful and authentic customer experience? And how can we use some of the best technology to accomplish that?
One of the challenges I have at my company, Alliance, in commercial real estate is we have different generations working for us. And that's typical in a commercial real estate company. How do you deal with, and what advice would you give entrepreneurs and people out there in the ether that are listening to this and watching this? How do you deal with a young man or woman who's a millennial or a part of the generation that grew up on technology, and they have the phone on their desk, they're constantly texting, scrolling, and as well as anyone as an employee, as well as I do, you start doing that for 10 minutes, you might lose an hour of productivity. How do you suggest people deal with that issue? It's a major issue. It's something we deal with as a company. How would you suggest people tackle that?
So from the company perspective,
yes,
and a kind of cross-generational employee base, yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters so much if you're 20 or if you're 70. It's still going to be distracting if you're on TikTok for 3 hours and not being productive for work. So
right.
I think that's just it's not this hard policy. It's more of this discussion. what do we want here? Do we want to be productive with what we're doing, or do we not? Right. So when we're at work, we need to be productive. That's our responsibility. And all the data will show that doing X, Y, and Z is not going to be productive. Not only is it not going to be productive for your work, it's not going to be productive for your mental health and your physical health. So, companies that we talk to will encourage them to, focus on the mental and physical health components first, less on the productivity, and then second, okay, let's tie this back into what our mission is and make sure we're all aligned. And most times people are receptive. And the interesting thing, going back to some of the DD data, digital detox data, is the majority, over 50%, want to get better. Even teenagers, over 50% of teenagers recognize the impacts on mental health and physical health, and they want to get better. It's not a pushback of no, I still want my TikTok for 9 hours a day. They don't like that. They just they need a different solution. So back to the company, having those wholehearted talks, and in most cases they'll understand.
So beyond your angel investing in startups, how do you approach investing in the rest of your portfolio? And if you feel comfortable answering this.
Sure. Yeah. So my family's portfolio, outside of some of the fun individual ones, we're pretty boring, right? So we're in a lot of private equity fund of funds, hyper diversified. Our public equities are in very broad index, small, mid, large cap, international. So pretty vanilla investing on the public and private side. I'm very bullish on private markets. We were acquired by private equity, so I have some recency bias there. But I love private markets for a lot of reasons. But we're spread across public markets, private markets, some real estate. That looks like I need to talk to you to get more into real estate.
Absolutely.
And then individual companies.
So, as you and I discussed, you recently moved from the Bay Area to Oregon. What inspired the move, and how do you love living there? I mean, what's the experience like, the difference between a big city to a little bit more rural living? What's it been like for you and your family?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So I grew up in Fresno, California, Central Cal, and then my wife and we moved to the Bay Area when she was in residency, and we were there for probably 10 years, and that's where my company grew and sold. And after that, we were just looking for a change of pace. So I think it was a couple pillars: some environment, some family. We have some family up in the Oregon area. And it just kind of happened. It was an interesting, fast transition, but it happened. So far we're about 18 months in. We love the space. We have a lot more space now. We love how lush Oregon is, and the rain. It doesn't rain that much. It's not that bad. And then the community we're in is about 50,000 people. It's just this very tight knit, committed community, and fantastic spot for kids to grow up. So the kids are just on cloud nine. They're having a blast. My wife and I love it. We do miss a lot of the friends that we have in the Bay, some of the restaurants in the Bay, but it's a 2-hour flight and we could pop around. So so far we're loving Lake Oswego. It's a great base camp, great place to raise a family.
So the name of the show is I Own It. It's owning every aspect of your life, your behavior, your work ethic, your relationships, you name it, from a holistic basis. We are all works in progress for us, as you know. Can you share a recent example where you didn't own it fully with our audience?
I could share a lot of examples of when I didn't own it. And this could be any aspect of life. Yeah. So I think too, I'll get a little vulnerable here. When my father died in 2020, I didn't know how to deal with that. I thought I was, the pragmatic CEO that just completely resilient, nothing would faze me, and that hit me pretty hard. So I didn't own kind of the personal journey right after that, and it was an interesting grief journey, but got through it. But at the time, that was one. Another one was when I sold the company. And this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about. That transition, I had no idea what to expect on what it's like going from owning your company to now working for another company and then having zero control over your company. And that was a transition. I think I could have done a lot better on that. I probably should have found other mentors that have been through that before. And in retrospect, that would have gone a long way. So those are probably two areas that I didn't own it as well as I could have.
What is the best way to follow DD in you? Like, can you share, how do we keep engaged with you?
Yeah, sure. So digitaldetox.com, back to your very first question on people recognize how addicted they are. We're actually launching a score, the DOOR score, in a couple weeks. So by the time this airs, it'll be live. And it's this sophisticated measure. It's an easy 5-minute assessment that'll tell you exactly a range of how much tech is impacting your life. digitaldetox.com/score, you can get that. Join our email list. We have a bunch of really cool products and services launching this summer. Keep on us, digitaldetox.com. You can follow me, Forest Bronzan, on LinkedIn and soon likely Instagram. And I would love to be in touch.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap up with our 3 questions we do with all our guests. Okay. All right. So how old are you now?
I just recently turned 40.
Oh, recently turned 40. So you see we have a couch. I would say, Forrest, get on the couch, lay down, kick up your feet, pillow behind the head. Go back to when you were 16. You've been through some exits. You've been an entrepreneur your whole life, different experiences. What advice, if you can go back in time to give your 16-year-old self, what would you tell yourself now that you know you have all this knowledge and experience that you could share with yourself?
Oh, a lot. Oh, my goodness. We could write a novel on that. One, and this will kind of tie it more into the digital detox side, I wish when I was 16, I was more present with my mom and dad, right? Especially my dad who recently passed, and with other people in my life. 16, high school, and this was, at my age, this was before iPhone, whatnot, but still having more of those meaningful conversations, not being as driven of here's what I want to do in the next couple of years, getting into college. So just being a little bit more present with some folks that are a little bit older and now are a lot older.
So it's our last day on earth. God forbid. It's just me and you.
Just you and me.
Just me and you. Okay. It's our last meal together. Your choice. What are we eating? What are we drinking?
What are we eating and what are we drinking? Can I put a location too? Because I think that plays into
anything.
It. Yeah. So if it's our last day and I'm not on a health regimen, then we'd do burger and fries with a Coke on the beach of Bora Bora with French Burgundy.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Yeah. Is there a certain burger you like?
Avocado, sauteed mushrooms, onions, and some type of spicy ointment. If you will.
Okay, I love that. What do you do for your health? I mean, you're in great shape, and what are you doing to keep healthy these days?
Do you know Peter Attia? I'm an avid Peter Attia fan.
No,
so
I'll have to look him up.
Oh, you'd love him if you're into personal fitness.
I'm very healthy. I stay healthy. I work out with a trainer 5 days a week. So I've been doing that for years.
That's great. Good for you. I follow a lot of the Peter Attia protocol, but it's a combination of strength training. I probably do strength training equivalent of 4 times a week. I swim. We have a pool 4 times a week, and then a combination of zone 2, zone 5 cardio. So, long, low intensity sessions, and then really, really fast, high intensity sessions. And then kind of the social pastime, rucking, walking with friends with weight on the back.
Weight on the back, some bricks.
And that's kind of anything I can do to get outdoors and also be social and have folks. I don't do a ton of group sport type stuff. So it's all strength training, swimming, running, individual, but then rucking and kind of hiking and hill walking with friends is a great way to balance it all out.
So in our studio, as you see, we have a grand piano, drums, and guitars behind me. If you could bring in any band or musician, they could be living or deceased, they could walk through that black door and come in studio and play us a song. Your choice, Forrest. Who's coming in studio and what song are they playing us?
Oh man, can I pick 5? That's tough.
That's hard. You know what? That's the beauty. You pick one and then you come back to the show, you could pick another one.
I could pick another one.
Right.
Mick Jagger, Give Me Shelter.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. Fantastic. I love that. Yeah. Well, Forrest, thanks for joining us. And definitely, I encourage our audience, keep following Forrest. Just incredibly talented. Such a great treat to have you in studio today. And thank you for coming in. If you're interested in listening to more episodes of the Ben Reinberg I Own It Show, kick that subscribe button and feel free to hit the like button so we could share this great content that Forrest just dropped on us all throughout the world. And like I say, Let it go viral. If you want to follow me, go to benreinberg.com. You can follow me on all social media platforms. And feel free to follow my company, alliancecgc.com. We're the leaders in commercial real estate investing. If you are a credit investor and interested in passively investing in medical office, feel free to log on to our website and invest in the number one fund, the Alliance Medical Property Fund. Forest Bronzan, thank you so much for joining us. What a treat. And have a great day.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.